Story 1. The rumble of the 18-wheeler was the only lullaby I'd known for the better part of 15 years. My name's Rick. And my office? It was 70 feet long and weighed 80,000 pounds. A steel beast devouring asphalt mile after endless mile. You get used to the solitude out here. The hum of the engine, the hiss of the air brakes, the static whisper of the CB radio, they all become part of your bloodstream. You learn to spot the deer long before they break cover, to read the weather in the clouds, and sometimes you learn to see things that aren't there. Or are they? It started subtly enough. A flicker, a trick of the eye. I was hauling a chemical load from Phoenix to Ohio, a 3-day run of nothing but highway, desert, and then endless cornfields. It was past midnight, somewhere in New Mexico, the kind of dark where the stars punch holes in the black sky. I was rounding a long, gentle curve, mind half on the upcoming coffee stop, when I saw it. Just a flash in my peripheral vision, standing by the roadside, where there was nothing but scrub brush and tumbleweeds. A figure. Tall, slender, unnaturally still. My head snapped to the left, but the spot was empty. Just the yellow desert grass swaying in the wind I'd kicked up. I shook my head, blamed it on too much coffee and too many hours behind the wheel. Road fatigue. It messes with your perception. Every long hauler knows that. You see phantom brake lights, feel phantom vibrations. It's part of the job. But then it happened again. A few nights later, pushing through Missouri, the rain was coming down in sheets, making the road a slick, reflective ribbon. The windshield wipers worked furiously, a rhythmic slosh thump, slosh thump. I was squinting through the downpour, concentrating hard, when I caught it in the passenger side mirror. A face, pale, gaunt, pressed against the glass, framed by greasy dark hair. Its eyes were wide, black pits, staring straight at me. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I instinctively swerved, the big rig lurching dangerously, tires fighting for grip. I wrenched the wheel back, breath catching in my throat, and slammed on the brakes, the beast groaning to a near halt on the shoulder. My eyes darted to the mirror. Nothing, just the blurring lines of taillights behind me, and the relentless rain. I sat there, engine idling, wipers still fighting the deluge, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I told myself it was the rain, the reflection, the exhaustion. But the image was burned into my retinas, those eyes. They weren't just looking at me, they were looking into me. Sleep became a battlefield. Every rest stop felt like a trap. I'd pull in, park amongst the other big rigs, but the familiar sense of sanctuary was gone. I'd lie in my bunk, eyes wide open in the oppressive darkness of the sleeper cab, listening. Listening for what? I didn't know. Maybe just the silence. But it wasn't silent. There was a faint scratching, like fingernails dragging across metal, coming from the outside of the cab, near my head. I'd freeze, heart thumping against the thin mattress. It would stop. I'd let out a shaky breath. Then it would start again, maybe closer this time. Scritch, scritch, scritch. One night, the scratching migrated. I was driving through a dense stretch of forest in Pennsylvania, trees so thick they blocked out the moon. The road was narrow, winding, and completely deserted. The air in the cab turned frigid, raising gooseflesh on my arms despite the heater blasting. Then I heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible tap-tap-tap coming from inside the sleeper berth, just behind my head. My breath hitched. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror. The sleeper was dark, a black void. Common sense screamed at me not to look, not to acknowledge it. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I stared straight ahead, pushing the rig faster, trying to outrun it. The tapping continued, slow and deliberate, each tap a tiny hammer blow against my sanity. It was no longer just a sound. It felt like a presence, a cold, unblinking awareness filling the confined space behind me. My skin crawled. I could almost feel cold breath on the back of my neck. I floored it, the roar of the engine a desperate attempt to drown out the sound, to drown out my fear. After what felt like an eternity, the tapping ceased. The cold spot lingered, a chilling reminder. I was unraveling. My eyes were bloodshot, my nerves frayed. I chewed caffeine pills like candy. Every shadow was a figure, every gust of wind a whisper. I started talking to myself, arguing, rationalizing, anything to keep the silence from pressing in. The climax came on a particularly desolate stretch of I-80 in Wyoming. It was late, past 3 in the morning, and the landscape was a monotonous blur of sagebrush under a bruised, moonless sky. I was fighting to stay awake, the coffee long since worn off. My eyelids felt weighted with lead. I must have drifted just for a second, because the next thing I knew, the whole truck shuddered. I jolted awake, gripping the wheel. A deer? I scanned my mirrors, but there was nothing. Then, as my eyes flicked to the passenger side mirror, I saw her. She was there, right beside the truck, keeping pace. Her hair was stringy, matted, not quite black, not quite gray. Her face, what I could make out of it in the faint glow of my marker lights, was a sickly pale, almost translucent. Her eyes, those horrifying black pits, were fixed on me, unblinking. She was floating, no legs visible, gliding effortlessly alongside the rig at 70 miles an hour. Pure, unadulterated terror seized me. This wasn't fatigue. This wasn't a trick of light. This was real. I screamed, a raw animal sound that tore from my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut for a terrifying second, then forced them open. She was still there, unwavering, a macabre escort. Her lips, thin and bloodless, began to twist into a slow, deliberate smile. It wasn't a human smile. It stretched too far, revealing too many teeth. And her eyes, they gleamed with something ancient and malevolent. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, pushing the old rig to its absolute limit, the engine screaming in protest. The speedometer needle climbed higher, but she stayed right there, effortlessly matching my speed. Her face, her horrifying smile, pressed closer to the glass. I could feel her presence, a suffocating cold that seeped into my bones. Then, slowly, agonizingly slowly, her hand began to rise. A skeletal hand, long bony fingers tipped with nails that looked cracked and black. She pressed it against the window, directly next to my head. I could see the faint impression of her palm on the glass. The smile widened further, a silent invitation, a silent threat. I screamed again, a guttural shriek, and violently swerved the truck to the left, then to the right, anything to shake her off. The trailer fishtailed, protesting the sudden erratic movements. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs, convinced I was about to jackknife and meet my end. But the swerving worked. When the truck finally stabilized, she was gone, vanished. The space beside me felt impossibly vast and empty, yet tainted. I drove the rest of that night in a daze, fueled by sheer terror. I made my delivery, barely able to speak coherently to the dispatcher. My hands shook so bad I could barely sign the papers. I walked away from that truck, left the keys in the ignition at the depot, and never looked back. I'm out of the trucking business now. Got a job in a warehouse, steady hours, no more lonely nights on the road. But the peace I seek never truly comes. Sometimes, when the warehouse lights flicker, I catch a pale reflection in a dark window. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is still, I hear a faint tap-tap-tap coming from the hallway. And sometimes, in the dark corners of my vision, I still see that skeletal hand, pressing against the glass, inviting me in. She comes for me now. The road might be behind me, but I think the road brought something with it, something that decided to tag along for the ride, and it's never going to let me go. Story 2. My name's Silas. Been driving 18-wheelers for 30 years. 3 million miles, give or take. Seen every sunrise from the Rockies to the Appalachians, every sunset dip behind the endless plains. You learn a lot out here on the road. You learn that coffee's your best friend, that a good playlist can save your sanity, and that most folks just don't understand the kind of solitude you live with. But what they really don't understand What I never thought I'd understand myself is what else shares this road. For years I scoffed at the whispers at truck stops, the legends of phantom hitchhikers and ghost lights. Exhaustion, I'd say. Bad diesel. Too much caffeine and not enough sleep. Then the shadows started. It began subtly, like a pebble in your shoe that you keep trying to ignore. A flicker in the peripheral, just beyond the reach of my headlights. A shape that dissolved the moment I turned my head. A cold spot by the passenger window on a sweltering August night, raising goosebumps despite the blasting AC. I'd chalk it up to tricks of the light, heat haze, or just plain old fatigue. The road plays tricks, sure, but these tricks started playing back. The first time I knew it wasn't just my imagination was a couple of months back, heading through the Arizona desert. Middle of the night, miles from anything but stars and saguaro cacti. I'd pulled over at a desolate rest stop, one of those concrete slabs with a single picnic table and a broken light fixture. Figured I'd grab 40 winks. Cut the engine. The silence was immediate, deep. I was drifting off when I heard it. A whisper. Not outside, but inside the cab. Right behind my head. It was faint, like dry leaves skittering across asphalt. But distinct. Too close. My heart hammered against my ribs. I froze, every muscle tight. "Hello?" I croaked, my voice sounding impossibly loud in the overwhelming quiet. Nothing. Just the hum of the cooling engine. I wrote it off as a half-dream, the brain playing tricks, but my sleep was shot. After that, the whispers returned. Sometimes a low murmuring, sometimes just a breath. Always when I was alone. Always when the engine was off, or the radio was static. I started blasting classic rock, even when I didn't feel like it, just to drown out the silence. Then came the knocking. A soft tap, 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 like knuckles on glass, always from the passenger side window. It started around midnight, always in the darkest stretches of highway. My first instinct was to look over. Nothing. Just the blackness of the outside world, reflected back in the glass. I'd tighten my grip on the wheel, my knuckles white, and press harder on the gas. It was relentless. Tap, tap, tap. Sometimes slow, deliberate. Other times, frantic, like someone desperate to get in. One night, halfway through Kansas, the knocking was particularly insistent. It wasn't just the window. It was the sleeper berth wall, the dashboard, the ceiling. It felt like something was crawling all over the outside of my rig, tapping, testing, trying to find a way in. I floored it, the big rig protesting, pushing 80 even though I knew the speed limit. I was sweating, my eyes darting between the road and the side mirrors. And that's when I saw it. In the passenger side mirror, for just a split second, there was a face. Pale, gaunt, hair plastered to its forehead, eyes like twin abysses. It wasn't just there. It was pressed against the glass, distorting, like it was trying to push through. My foot slammed on the brake, the truck jackknifing slightly, tires squealing. I pulled over onto the shoulder, heart leaping into my throat. Pure, unadulterated terror seized me. I threw open the passenger side door, scanning the empty highway. Nothing. Just the wind whistling past, and the distant rumble of another truck on the horizon. My breath plumed in the cold night air, even though it was summer. I finally acknowledged it. I was not alone out here. The encounters escalated. One morning, pulling out of a truck stop in Nebraska, I glanced in my side mirror to check my blind spot. A figure stood at the fuel pump I'd just left. A woman, in a long, tattered dress, her head bowed. I thought nothing of it. Just another early riser. But then she slowly lifted her head. Her face was decaying, like something pulled from a shallow grave, her eyes milky and lifeless. And she simply watched me. No movement, just that blank, dead stare, even as my rig pulled away, shrinking her to a speck in the mirror. I didn't breathe until she was completely gone. My rig, the one I'd practically lived in for years, started feeling wrong. Cold spots lingered, even with the heater on full blast. The air would sometimes turn heavy, smelling faintly of dust and something metallic, like old blood. I'd catch glimpses of movement in the reflection of my rearview mirror, shadows that weren't mine, figures hunched in the empty passenger seat. I started talking to myself, just to fill the silence, to make sure I was still real, still sane. Then came the night in Colorado. Black ice, a sudden blizzard, and my rig was fishtailing down a steep mountain pass. I fought the wheel, my chest tight, the rig sliding towards the edge. Suddenly, the entire cab went bone-chillingly cold. The temperature gauge plummeted. Every light on the dash flickered. My radio died. And then, a sound I'll never forget. A low, guttural growl, full of ancient malice, emanating from the passenger seat. I risked a glance. Just a quick one. And I saw them. Two glowing red pinpricks, like embers, staring at me from where the passenger seat headrest should be. No body, just those eyes, suspended in the darkness that now filled my cab. The growl deepened, vibrating through the floorboards, through my very bones. The air grew impossibly thick, crushing. I was paralyzed, locked in place, my hands frozen on the wheel, the truck still sliding. Those red eyes moved closer, inches from my face now, burning into me. I could feel its rancid breath, cold and stale on my cheek. It wasn't just watching me, it was studying me, with an intelligence that was terrifyingly cold. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. Just as I thought I was going to black out, that the thing was going to take me, a blinding white light erupted from the mountain tunnel ahead. It was just another truck, its high beams cutting through the snowfall. But to me, it was salvation. The red eyes vanished. The growling stopped. The cab warmed slightly. My radio flickered back to life, blasting some forgotten country song. The feeling of absolute dread lifted, replaced by a shuddering relief that left me weak. I made it through the pass, pulled over at the next exit, and just sat there, trembling, for a full hour. I was alive, but I was changed. I still drive. The bills don't pay themselves, but the road isn't the same. Every shadow holds a deeper blackness. Every flicker in the mirror is scrutinized. Every whisper in the static makes my blood run cold. I check the passenger seat obsessively. I never turn off my radio. And sometimes, when I hit a particularly desolate stretch and the light catches the cab just right, I swear I can still feel that cold spot. And sometimes, when the wind howls just so, I hear a faint, distant whisper, just over my shoulder, reminding me that I'm never truly alone on these endless highways. They're out there, and they know my name.